Good morning, everyone. So as Mark said, my name is Faris Saracic. I'm part of IBM Engineering Product Management team based here in Europe, specifically Munich, Germany. So I have a pleasure to talk about IBM Engineering today. I'm happy to see a lot of faces I've met, worked with in the past, so that's great. In the next 45, 50 minutes, what I'm going to focus is basically kind of level set what is IBM Engineering. You're probably interested in what we're working on this year, so I'll kind of share the planned or intended roadmap of releases for this year. We're going to focus a little bit about 7.1 release that was released in October 2024. And just that presentation by itself can be a couple hours. So what I've done is I've pulled some interesting content. Going to see highlights of the capabilities that probably are exciting for everyone, especially if you are kind of in a doors next world, because those are the features you've been waiting, asking for years. We're finally kind of delivering and kind of moving the needle for IBM Engineering. And then the last piece is something that's coming. You probably heard about IBM Engineering 7.1, SR1, IFIX 004. So that's coming end of this month. And I will just give you highlights why we're doing that and what's the purpose of it. If you have any questions, we're going to have time on the end. But if there's something really important for you to ask, please raise hands. I don't mind. We actually stop and discussing. And let's see if this works. No. Okay. So what is IBM Engineering? Some of you probably have seen this slide before. IBM Engineering industries where we are focused on have not changed. We're still focused on automotive, aerospace, defense, electronics, public sector, infrastructure, regulated finance. This is where we are focused, but does not necessarily mean that we are not actually in other industries as well present. IBM Engineering is really foundation of the complex to help engineers develop complex software systems. It's all about kind of how do you actually developing a solution. If you are developing basically from different markets, developing systems for example, if you're in automotive space, you develop the car for German market, for UK market, it's going to be very similar, but it's a little bit different because you would drive on the wrong side, what we would say in Europe, but from your side, it's the right side, right? So those are the kind of differences, and this is what differentiates IBM Engineering compared to the competition. What is the IBM Engineering solution? Really, we are focused on the V model. We start with requirements management, so we have a set of solutions for that. System engineering, we have Rhapsody portfolio that's focused in this area. This year, we also added Rhapsody System Engineering. Then we have for implementation, engineering workflow management, and then testing, test management, and of course, around that is kind of Forte with the global configuration. It gives you kind of ability to create different baseline streams and kind of manage not just the source code, but the entire engineering portfolio from requirements to the testing. And of course, the reporting. So for reporting, we have solution based on your needs. If you are looking for something for kind of sharing with the teams, individuals, statistical, that's where Jazz Reporting Service come in the picture. If you want to kind of present something to your suppliers, contractual, this is where publishing comes to develop your document generation. And if you're looking for kind of visual representation of your data across the entire IBM Engineering portfolio, that's where Engineering Insight comes in the picture. So what do we have actually prepared for you for this year? So you have already seen some of the items that we have released, long-awaited ELM hybrid cloud, in essence, our container solution. We released it in April of this year. It's a follow with Rhapsody 10.0.2. Steve will actually go a little bit into details on that solution. You will see a lot of good capabilities that you as a customer have been asking for as part of this Rhapsody. We just released this week new version of Adores Classic, so 9.7.10 is released, and then the rest of the year, see, it's a pretty busy year. We have plans to release our IBM Engineering AI solution. It's going to be basically kind of create a foundation built on what we have seen with the RQA as a baseline requirements quality assistant. So those capabilities first we need to address, expand on kind of how to actually build your requirements using in COSI plus more, and so on. End of the year, we will have new version of the IBM Engineering hybrid cloud. Rhapsody is also planning to have a release, and so on. In addition to that, Rhapsody System Engineering has a quarterly releases. So we don't actually even put on the slides anymore. You just expect you can actually get a new release every quarter. And of course, you're familiar with probably iFixes. That comes on a regular basis as well. So this is kind of a high level. We're going to now go into ELM 7.1 specifically. I'll start with a few themes. Themes are basically kind of bigger items that we have either for entire release or multiple releases. In this case, the theme have not changed from 7.3 to 7.1, but the content that we delivered have changed. So on the digital thread, you can see there's a lot of things about modeling. One of the big items is AM to AM modeling. So this includes also Rhapsody System Engineering. So you can actually link between Rhapsody and Rhapsody System Engineering. Part of this is kind of simplification. How do you actually do this linking using a drag and drop and so on. Engineering Insight, for example, added also support for LQE relational store and so on. On reporting, quite a bit of updates on reporting, starting with from the end user practitioner capabilities to add additional historical metrics. So we're closing the gap with the other data sources. Something that I've heard a lot of times customer asking is, could you give me details about your schema? Can you kind of give me how the data structure is? Type Explorer. So we provided built-in report builder Type Explorer, and you can actually see the kind of behind the scene, the schema for not just the LQ relational store, but also for the data warehouse, as well as LQ Agenda. The one thing that I want to say, what is coming in the future with the Type Explorer, it actually gives us now ability to connect some of the dots that we've seen with customers. There's a lot of customers that basically have type conflicts. It's very hard to find where those conflicts are coming from. In Report Builder today, if you go to conditions, for example, you actually get the warning message that there is type conflict, but that's it. You don't know where's the conflict coming from, how to actually find the details. With the Type Explorer, we basically extend this, and you have ability to see the same warning and specifically point in where the conflict is coming from. So I think that's going to be very helpful for a lot of customers that have large projects. They basically share the data structure and so on. And another thing on reporting is that we added the support for LDX to be based on the relational store. I'll talk more on this topic because I have a specific set of slides. But I think that's kind of closing the loop on the overall LQE, LDX, that relational store is present. And then configuration change management, several things are present there. One of the big items that I've seen from customer is, and I'll talk a bit more later on, is create doors next baselines in the past. Why is this important? Well, let's wait for a bit on that. A lot of other things, so you can kind of read on a slide. But let's move to the next set of items is agile engineering. One of the things that I've seen a lot of customers have asked is, can I add images, tables to my work item? This is what actually delivering, the first item is delivering ability for you to add images, tables to the work item descriptions. I've already seen that in practice using by IBM engineering development teams. It really enhances and kind of the work items that you are creating. Either you're creating a task, if you're creating defects, you can basically not just attach, but visually see this information. And a few other things in this area. On a user productivity, it's a long-awaited feature for Doors Next. This is the feature that people have been asking, can actually have ancestor descendants capability? Can I have the complex WAR filtering? All this basically is delivered. And the last piece is that we continually kind of improve in both performance and scale is various things is in this area. One of the things, the area that we've done testing for LDX, kind of comparing LDX Jena versus LDX Relation Store, and those results are actually published. So let's now take a look at a few highlights of the capabilities that are released with 7.1. So I'll start with the Doors Next. Complex expression with AND and OR. This is now kind of built into the Doors Next. This is basically a starting point. Once you click on the first drop-down, those are the options, and or and not or not. So this is how you start building your complex filter. This is a kind of example of the simple filter where you have basically or, so some matches to provide the name, contains the unit, and so on. And that's the starting point. The next one is kind of can actually build something more complex. So you start adding now additional conditions that you want in your filter and so on. But as you're adding the additional condition, what have you seen is the screen is actually slowly disappearing for your Doors Next. So wouldn't it be nice actually that I have ability to actually put this filter somewhere on another screen, especially for, I know a lot of developers have 2-3 screens now, can actually put this on another screen. And yes, that's why we have the link on the right hand side where it says edit in a new window. And when you basically click on that link, you reclaim that space. You can see your view with the requirements. And now you have your filter, which you can actually slide on the second screen. This is kind of a nice usability improvement. The next thing what we wanted to see is kind of ancestor and descendants. It's a small change, but it's very powerful, especially for users who are coming from Doors Classic. It's just an option on top is checkbox. When you select ancestor on descendants, it will show you additional information. So in this case, we see ancestors. The next is see descendants. But now, especially if you have a lot of the requirements and ancestors and descendants, your screen become busy and you are not sure what was the original items that you started from. So on the right-hand side, there's an option, highlight filter matches. And this basically highlights the items that you're starting point. It's on this screen, it might not be visible, but you see a little bit bluish color in the background. So this is something that you basically now have also ability to help you. Of course, this is now part of your view and you have ability to save this view or create a new view from there. Another big item that I said is create a history, create a baseline in the past. So what we have seen with a lot of customers today is they're creating baselines, some customers on a daily basis, just to have a baseline so they don't actually miss to have a baseline. And that creates another problem. It creates a performance problem because you're going to have, for one project, 365 baselines. And if you have hundreds of projects, that's a huge number. But you only need probably 1 or 2 per year. Creating a baseline, it's a simple. So what we've done is we unlock the capability that you can select, because we have all the information. So it's not something that's changing. It's something that's not mutable anymore. So we give you ability to create a baseline in the past, and it removes the need for you to create a baseline or just a baseline to have handy in case you need it. When I first presented this, I was kind of debating, should I include this slide because it's so simple? But after that, it's becoming a crucial part of the story about Doors Next, what we delivered in 7.1. This is another big item that Doors Next actually delivered in 7.1. Next thing is, as you're working with the Doors Next and Doors Next sending TRS information to the reporting solution, you might actually have your maintenance windows. It might be that there is operating system upgraded during the weekend, the server is shut down, and proper procedure have not been taken to bring down the IBM engineering. This could lead to situations where data gets corrupted. Doors Next, especially event-based TRS, was known for those issues. And then you basically need to open 7.1 tickets, work with IBM to clean up, to might sometimes get a backup or reindex, and that takes time and effort. That's why we introduced and replaced event-based TRS with the log-based TRS. For 7.02, this is available starting with 7.0.2 iFix 26. So if you are on this version, you can take advantage of this today. If you're on 7.03, this is still available as optional. 7.1, it's not an optional. You have to basically move to log-based TRS. So it's a mandatory. So just highlighting that this is something you should not be putting off for the time when you upgrade to 7.1. If you are on 7.2, iFix 26 or later, or 7.03, take advantage of next weekend, because you do need to go through the reindexing process when you change the log-based TRS. So it's one less checkbox when you upgrade to 7.1 to worry about. Next, we're going to start looking into workflow management, engineering workflow management. Just a couple of highlights. As I said, you can add now images to your description. These are the supported image types. You can copy and paste from Windows Explorer. You can, if you already have the image, you can actually drag it from work item into the description. One thing that is missing today, we're planning that to address in the future, is ability to resize the image. That would be a nice touch, but because of technology behind, it's limited today, and we plan to address that in the future. The second part of this solution is ability to add tables. So this is basically using the HTML table feature. So you can also copy and paste from the Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, and works really actually well. Just think about it, various ways you can actually use the table within the work item. So a couple of small items you would think, but it's a great improvement on an EWM side. Next, I want to highlight some of the things about just reporting service and link index provider. I will focus first on a practitioner end. So I already highlighted that we added additional out-of-the-box historical metrics. This is to close the gap that we had with the LQE Jena, as well as with the data warehouse. Now, one big item that's missing is custom historical metrics to close the gaps with the data warehouse. That's coming end of this year. That's a big change because that will actually give us ability now to think about really removing data warehouse as a data source in the future. So there are no plans right now. I do see data warehouse to continue to live for a while now, but you should start kind of thinking when the 7.2 is released to really look at this technology and see how can I actually use LQ relational store. That's one item. The next big item, what I've seen is a lot of customers create a complex report where they have huge traceability. You basically want to report across multiple child types. And for that, you go to traceability, you create a large traceability, you might actually have merges, appends, and so on. And on the end, you end up with, I don't know, 10, 12 different levels. First of all, that's not performant when you have so many levels. The workaround today that's available is to go to the advanced query and modify Sparkle or SQL. You really need to understand the Sparkle and SQL in that cases. It's not recommended for everyone, and it's not a good practice. Instead, what we've done is we now brought up the type system, child type systems, to be on the same level as your primary artifact types. So now you can actually see the selection where it says category type promoted. In a parentheses, it means that is the item that we have promoted. There's no need to create traceability anymore. And by default, this is included from subtypes. If you feel that you are now overwhelmed with the number of types, we have a checkbox. You can check it to be as it was behaved before. The value, what it brings is, if you have ever created large traceability reports, you need, number one is create the traceability. Second, when you go to format results, now you're going to have multiple attributes, different names that you basically need to make sure the names are consistent so you can actually merge those columns together. That takes time. And the third part is it's not performing well. Using this, it simplifies from a user perspective how you create report, and it's made to perform well. So if you have such reports, this is something that you can take advantage of 7.1, try it, test it out, see how it works in your environment. Another item that I talked about earlier is Type Explorer. So this is available to any JRS user, report builder user, so you don't have to be admin for this. In essence, on that one of the kind of icons on the top right hand, when you click down, there will be option Type Explorer. It's going to open a new tab. You start with selecting what is your data source, what is the data type, what is the artifact type. Are we talking about change configuration management, policy management, requirements management, and so on? And then you have the list of all the attributes available. And when you click one of the artifacts or attributes, you basically have all the details. And now think about it, if as I said before, is if we have a type conflicts, now we have ability to basically say, hey, there's a type conflict and there's an icon here. And you can now see where are the conflicts coming from for the same attribute types. And of course, you can also have this with the baselines and the streams. With the baselines, you cannot do much because you cannot change that anymore, but you have ability to change on the streams, and that basically would help in that case. So this is when you're looking from the practitioner level. So now what do we want to look at it from the administrator side? Well, the first item that's really important to state is LDX. It's basically LDX is another LQE application specified for keeping the global configuration links. You usually have LDX on a separate server. You have to manage. You have to create additional TRS feeds, even though those TRS feeds usually does not take much processing time from the main application. But if you have multiple LQEs, LDX servers, that actually do have some impact. So what we've done is we actually introduced the LDX relational store. Same thing what we've done in 7.3 with the LQE. We tested it, and we basically give you ability to have the same capability with less system resources, and I'll show some statistical data later on. It improves that we now recommend for all customers to move to the LDX relational store. And most important part is we brought LDX as part of the LQE. You still can have it separate, but we recommend all customers as they move to 7.1, remove the need for the second server. Keep everything all together. And these are some of the performance number. As you can see, LDX Jena, it's very slow response time compared to the Oracle. There's some other additional data. So not just that we help reduce the footprint, we reduce additional TRS feeds that you need to have with the application. We also improve the performance. Another thing that's important for everyone in this room, if you are using LQE today, LQE Jena last supported version is going to be 7.1. So that means if you are thinking to move from X version to 7.2, that will not be possible until you have removed the LQE Jena. Important. I'll repeat that. I have a special slide to talk about that as well. So what is the kind of LQE Jena architecture today? This is the 7.3. It's a really same architecture for 7.02. The only difference is in 7.03, we do have actually support for RMM as additional TRS feed. So your models now can be part of your reporting solution. Similar, this is for LDX, how the LDX looks like. And what we've done is we now combined into new architecture. So this is the ideal scenario, brand new deployment. Customer never used the LDX Jena, and in this case, you have the LQE plus LDX relational store on a server, interface to your relational database and report builder. So this is a kind of greenfield world, is brand new. But of course, that's not an ideal world. You're going to always have customers who have LQE Jena deployed, and what do you actually do in that case? We have two different architecture topology that we suggest. One is where you can continue to keep LQE Jena on a separate server, and then you stand up a separate LQE server. This would be a relation store. You connect to your relations database and so on. We actually recommended this as the primary because there were advantages when you were kind of comparing LQE Jena versus relation store. You wanted to make sure that they're really comparing apples to apples, not when they're on the same server, kind of take additional system resources. Unfortunately, there are cons. So additional installation work is needed, more data sources to manage, more physical server to maintain. And what we've seen is the majority of customers actually moving to the topology 2. The topology 2 is a topology that's probably interim solution, something that you will have for a period of time where you're going to have Jena and relational store running until you're comfortable with technology. And at that point, once you are happy with the relational store, you're going to shut down the Jena, remove it. So that is where actually I see most customers moving towards. And as I said, there's a lot of pros. Is one less server to worry about, less report builder data sources to imagine, and so on. Server rename is needed only if you decide to move LQE to a server with less resources in that case, but that's usually not the case. Now, we talked also about how can I actually, what's the benefits moving from the LQE Jena to relational store? Well, first of all, we talk about system resources a lot, and how we achieve that. We tested with up to 5,000 simulated users. We were able to run 83 reports a second for the LQE relational store. When we compare with the Jena, we were able to achieve only 25. I don't expect anyone will actually go to 5,000 concurrent users, But it was just a number that I kind of hypothetically said is, hey, if we're going to like 500,000, let's go 5,000. Let's see where it's going to break. And it did not break. So we were able to achieve 5,000. And you can actually see all the performance results and kind of database sizing on one of those links on the top. Majority of reports basically will run from a performance perspective faster with the relation store. There will be some reports that are slower. We say if the reports are running up to 10 seconds slower, that's negligible, don't worry about it. If it's running above 10 seconds, take a look what's going on with report. Perhaps a report can be optimized. I talked about traceability and the improvements that we deliver in 7.1. It could be that's the reason. This is something that you can take advantage of. The real reason why we actually moved to the LQ relation store is from a scalability perspective. And as a result, we are also kind of tackling into performance. And then from resource requirements, what does that mean? So this is an example. A database server with 128 gig RAM can now handle workload of LQE Jena that we actually have in our production on jazz.net, 1.5 terabytes of RAM. So less than 1/10. Additional saving is the Jena size moving to the relational store is half of the size. So for example, if you have LQE Jena total TDB size 1 terabyte, on Oracle and DB2, you expect to have between 500 to 600 gigabits. So additional size reduction because of some of the optimization we've done. For some reason, DB2 actually is a bit smaller than Oracle, just because Oracle has some additional overhead, I guess it has. And the last thing that a lot of customers are asking is, how about indexing? Is that improved also as the performance? No. Unfortunately, our focus was scalability. We improved performance of the reports. Indexing time, what we tested in the 703 is against the ETM, was approximately the same or roughly the same, about 10% slower. We test against doors next. For 702, we will actually be releasing performance report, and that's something amazing. Our test bed actually, Jena was much slower than compared to LQ relation store, both on the DB2 and the Oracle itself. Another thing is as we move to LQ relation store, we're also addressing some of the gaps that we had in the past. And I'm sure you're familiar with the server rename process. You know that for LQE, you need to go through reindexing up to the 7.1. With 7.1, there's no need to reindex anymore. LQE relation store now supports server rename like the rest of the application. So kind of saves you quite a bit of time if you have a large TDB index. And the last thing that I want to kind of talk about LQE relation store, as I said, 7.2 is just LQ relation store. We are removing not just the everything from the UI that is related to LQ Jena, also cleaning up documentation. So you need to be on 7.1, convert your reports to SQL. If you have a manually custom expression reports or advanced query reports, those requires manual intervention. All other reports automatically are converted. So that's why it's important that you actually stand up your 7.1 or 7.3 and you go through the process to get rid of the Jena. Ideally, what you want is on those older versions is disconnect LQE Jena from the JTS server and then delete data sources that you don't need anymore. With that, the last part of my talk is going to be about the upcoming release end of this month. So as you have seen in the recent years, we actually have 2 releases per year. One is a minor release, usually towards the end of the second quarter, beginning of third quarter, and then a major release in the fourth quarter. So we're going to continue this in 2025. We've done this in a 701, 702. 702 was specifically important because we had to implement a new log-based log4j upgrade from version 1 to version 2 because there's a lot of security items. So this requires side-by-side installation. We also added another release in 702 IFX 28 with some additional kind of low-level features without kind of risk were introduced. In 703, we had the IFX 7, where we added additional features and serviceability items. Most of the times, we can handle these through the iFixes. But in cases where you actually need to replace the component, the patch mechanism doesn't support that. So for that, what we need to do is you need to perform the side-by-side installation, or if you are moving to that release like 7.1 SR1 from 703, you can just go directly. You don't have to install 7.1 base and then SR1. You can just go 7.1 SR1. All those details are captured in the tech notes and the links below, so you can take a look. The slides will be shared afterwards. So for 7.1, what we are planning to do is some major component updates. The big item is adding a Java runtime, Java 17 support. We're updating various other components. Most notably is integrated Eclipse version, moving from 4.15 to 4.23. We include other kind of features that we feel are important to customers, but low risk to include and release, and I have a couple of slides on that. And of course, serviceability items, something that will actually help you discover when you have issues, and our IBM support when there are issues. So this is going to be, as I said, ELM 7.1 will serve the purpose of the IFX 04. So in order for you to move to IFX 5 or later, you need to adopt the SR1. And if you have done 7.2 SR1, this is pretty much the same pattern as we're going to have for 7.1. So what are those kind of capabilities? This is kind of a summary. Java 17, another version, basically shipped with the Liberty. We have a few kind of security items related. The most notable feature is if you have multiple RM servers. You know that a link constraint between artifacts managed with multiple RM server is not supported today. This basically now brings this feature at the same level as you work on the same server. So that's the big feature. There are a few other items that are related to Doors Next and the JRS, but I think that's the highlight. And this is really the feature about is ability to link constraints to give you the same ability that you have on a single server, as well when you're actually working between two or more servers, because we know that you have a lot of requirements, a lot of data. Sometimes you actually have multiple projects. You want to keep them separate, but then there is a need arise to link them together, to share some requirements. And this is one way you can actually do it. I have not talked about Engineering Insight a lot, so I included also one slide that's coming with the 7.1 SR1. So Engineering Insight added the support, Engineering Insight added the support for LQ Relational Store in 7.1. One thing that we missed to add is some samples, how you actually create your views, how you create your impact analysis using SQL. So we are now providing some samples, and you can take advantage of this. With that, I will come to my last slide and see if there are any questions. Any topics you want to cover that I have talked about, or anything about future?
Okay, thank you. I've noted down some questions. The first one is concerning the filters and the ancestors and descendants. In Doris Classic, these settings were part of the filter definition and stored. Is there any way to kind of achieve this also in Doris Next, now that these settings are stored into the filter? The idea why I'm asking for that is that if you want to ensure that the regif that comes out of the system contains a valid tree, you always need to take care that the ancestors are exported as well. And therefore it would be kind of helpful if the filter definition contain a setting to also include the ancestors.
So I believe today there is no feature to basically ensure that ancestor or descendants included. It is part of your view. So if you define your view that you want to export, that's part of the definition. So it's on the end user instead of the export that you actually take it to the next level. But that's a good idea. I don't know if you have submitted an idea, that would be the path.
I try to only create ideas if they are kind of aligned up front. Otherwise, I feel it's like wasted time.
Yeah, I think this one should be relatively light, right?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Another small question to the baselines creating in the past. Is there any possibility to kind of remember the dates and times? Because I think that most people create baselines just to remember what is the status of a version that has been exchanged or something. But if they don't create a baseline, they have to remember the time. And the question was if there is a kind of time labeling or whatever just to rename the to remember the time, because otherwise it's quite difficult to create a baseline in the past if you don't remember the time.
But when you're creating a baseline, it gives you the date and the time to specify.
Yeah.
So in a baseline, you will see when this was created. There's no additional label.
I mean, up front, if I want to create a baseline afterwards, I need to remember the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
The question was, if there's any kind of idea how to remember those dates, something like a baseline light that does just only remember the time in order to avoid creating a baseline.
Yeah. So in essence, what you're saying is, I want to create a label to say, hey, I need to create a baseline.
Yeah.
Versus
this is a point where I might want to create a baseline in the future.
Okay.
Just people just creating baselines to remember something, and I mean they might still create the baselines because they don't have a place to remember the date and the time.
Okay. So that's a good idea.
Okay, I see. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Hazel? Don't switch.
Thank you. In danger of showing my ignorance here. I have, I think, tried to find an artifact in Doors Next that I've got some evidence that it existed once, but it was created after the previous baseline and deleted after the previous baseline, and therefore I can't find it. How, if I want to create a baseline in the past, in the middle of all that, for where it did briefly exist, if I can't find it, how do you find it?
When you create a baseline in the past, that artifact existed, because even though it deleted, it is there because we keep all the changes. So even when you delete, there is record that was deleted. So when you
change sets and I've failed to find the evidence, I've failed to find it because I really, really wanted to know what was in it, and I haven't been able to find it. So yeah, I'm just thinking if I can't find it from the UI point of view, searching through change sets.
Have you tried to create a baseline and then search it again?
No, because I haven't been able to create a baseline in the past because I'm on the previous version.
Okay. I suggest that you go to jazz.net Sandbox. You can actually get the latest 7.1 release, play with it, and see how it works. If not, you can just let me know.
Thank you.
I think that's all for now. If you have additional questions, I'm here the rest of the day. So looking forward to talking to you, and I'll turn it over to Steve.
Thank you, Forrest. Thank you. My mic on? We good? Okay, excellent. Good morning, everyone. Again, I see lots of friendly faces from my many years doing this role. So today I'm going to talk about actually more than just Rhapsody Systems Engineer, but just give you an update on the whole Rhapsody family, because there's quite a lot happening, which is really good. So for those that don't know me, I'm Steve Rooks. I work in technical sales within IBM. I've been working on, I was thinking about it the other day, model-based engineering tools now for 30 years. So I started out working at Bell Labs in the US, building models of telecom systems. And even 30 years ago, we were generating code directly out of the models running on things like VxWorks and stuff like that. So in some ways, it's nice seeing these new fresh products, but on the other ways, this technology has been there for a long, long time. So it's actually quite mature, really. So I'm just going to cover Rhapsody 10, a few bits and pieces that I thought were interesting in that, and then we'll have a look at the new SysML v2 stuff with Rhapsody SE. So, God, I don't know where to look, actually. There's so many screens, but yeah, that's yeah, that's true. I don't want to block what you can see, exactly. Yeah, so Rhapsody 10, there's actually quite a lot happening, because with Rhapsody 10, the sort of the heartbeat of delivering new products is like twice as fast as ELM, and then you'll see for Rhapsody SE, it's 4 times faster. So trying to keep up with the deliveries of the sort of dev team, and of course it's a relatively new dev team for Rhapsody 10, actually even newer for Rhapsody SE. As they're getting more and more proficient, they're actually adding more and more features more quickly into the products. So with Rhapsody 10, we've got a new user interface that came in. So that came in first half of last year, and I'll show that in a second. What else we've got? Big news is the retirement of the gateway. So there's now something called requirement exchange, or rec exchanger, which is now shipped with Rhapsody. So that's usually of main interest to people who are using Rhapsody with DAWS Classic. User improvements. Yeah, big thing that Fariz already mentioned it around AM to AM linking. So this is all around so that we can link, so do OSLC linking between SysML v2 and UML, or SysML v1 and v2, because they're in different products. So so this allows us to do OSLC linking between those Rhapsody 10 and basically Rhapsody SE. And then we'll see some stuff. I've got some videos in a second around things that are happening in the 10.02 release as well. Other interesting things with Rhapsody 10 certainly is that, you know, if you're a Siemens PLM customer, then you might start to see, so Siemens is effectively reselling Rhapsody now, actually both versions of the product, and really embedding them into Teamcenter. So that's quite a big thing that's happening with Rhapsody at the moment as well. Okay, let's keep going. So, you know, in terms of Rhapsody 10, its roots, or let's call it Rhapsody 10, its roots were around software development, and in terms of sort of generating code out of UML models onto target systems. And there's all sorts of different products in different industries that Rhapsody's been used for the engineering work. And to be honest, this is what I find most interesting in terms of working with Rhapsody, is around the software side and embedded software development. All sorts of different products that are coming out of using model-based engineering. Right, so in terms of a little bit more detail, I mean, I'll let you read these and I'll just pick out a few bits and pieces. So Rhapsody 10.02, this was released last month. As I said, gateway replacement. This is test conductor. So there's some interesting capabilities being added around being able to reuse tests. We've had the automotive add-in to Rhapsody for a while now, and effectively we've now made the similar capabilities slightly tailored for different industries. The big thing about these packs is that add into Rhapsody is they provide modern C++ support. So if you really want to use the latest versions of C++ and some of the capabilities, then this is a useful add-in to use with Rhapsody. The other interesting thing is we've got some more frameworks, runtime frameworks. So this is the RxF framework from Sodius Willett. So there's already a lot of technology within Rhapsody that comes from SOE, as we call them, and this is another thing. So this is the RxF is particularly aimed at small embedded targets where we wouldn't even be able to do any animation of the model. So they've got their own effective visualizer of what's happening of the software on the target. So it's aimed at quite small targets. The keyless entry system that was on the previous slide, that's one of the big references for Daimler, Mercedes of the RxF. Lots of things around the UI changed in Rhapsody 10. Diff merge enhancements, simplified linking, I'll show a video of that in a second, improvements around performance and things like that. So a big spread of enhancements that have come into Rhapsody 10.02. What's coming up in 10.03? So this is intended for the end of the year. More things around performance, UI enhancements, some stuff around AI. I've got a bit more detail on that. Again, diff merge enhancements. There was another thing that I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, code editor. So it's just one little line down there, but they're intending to revamp the code editor as well in 10.03. So again, quite a few things that are going to be added and modified in the release at the end of the year. So if you haven't seen it, this is sort of Rhapsody 10. It's in the latest Microsoft sort of IDE style. Too many things to cover here in the short amount of time I've got, but there's a lot more control around the windows and how you dock things and how you align things inside this new IDE. Also a lot more control around the menus, creating effectively a custom look and feel within the tool if you want to move away from the defaults. Minor, but it's quite useful for new users around sort of making things more visible on the home screen. You've got the Harmony. When you load the Harmony profile into Rhapsody, it's got a new front screen as well, which is quite nice. And some stuff around, so that's the guide me. So these are effectively the tutorials that you can run inside Rhapsody to allow you to effectively follow a recipe for building a model. One of the nice things that comes along with this new IDE is that we've now effectively can have browsers running in the same IDE as Rhapsody. So you can have Doors Next sitting alongside Rhapsody. And you can drag and drop between the two, which is quite nice. So within the sort of ELM tools at the moment, you can sort of drag and drop for doing linking, and effectively by putting Doors Next into the browser in Rhapsody, yeah, you can achieve similar sorts of things. Again, I will show, here you go, I'll show you a little video of this. The main thing in Doors Next is knowing where the drag point is. As you see, it's like the multi-dot area, but you can just drag a requirement across, choose which link type you want, and then boom, the link is created. In Rhapsody, you see it in the remote artifacts package as well. And then, of course, you can drag and drop onto the diagram as well. So that was for Doors Next. Similar idea for test management, for workflow management. Again, just take a task. Like so. So we're certainly having discussions internally now as to how we can sort of take this capability and start to do more things with it. Be nice to be able to, for example, create requirements inside Rhapsody or Rhapsody SE and then drag them into Doors Next for when you're sort of starting to do this like Graham's ladder model, right? Exactly. Siemens Teamcenter running alongside Rhapsody. So Siemens have creating lots of capabilities in Teamcenter for pulling in Rhapsody models. As at the moment, I'm not sure if this is separate browser or if it's embedded actually, but of course they'll be able to embed that inside Rhapsody as well. Huge amount of stuff going on inside IBM around AI. Over the last year, I think I've worked on at least 3 different customer engagements using, so IBM's got this thing called client engineering, where they effectively, if a customer comes to them with some use cases, IBM will, I don't know, for 3 or 4 weeks, free of charge, just work with the customer to prototype some capabilities. And I seem to have got involved with quite a lot around what's next at AI and around requirements, a lot of stuff around requirements triaging, manipulating requirements, generating test cases from requirements. Another customer is around, can we take a requirement specification and automatically generate SysML, UML models out of them? Actually, surprisingly, what large language models can do, which was quite interesting. But so we're trying to sort of start putting in AI stuff inside the products. What we know, 3rd quarter. So Doors Next has got stuff coming in this quarter to around sort of the large language model version of Requirement Quality Assistant. The Rhapsody guys are also sort of starting to look around how can we sort of start infusing AI into Rhapsody and into the models. We've just got a little video here around a chat type interface on the side where you can start to ask questions of the model. Now, initially, this possibly seems quite trivial, but if you've got sort of new people, you've got some big models, and you're saying, well, go off and start adding some features inside the model, being able to effectively ask an expert that's got access to all of the data within the model, understands effectively the type system in the model and the relationships, it can give you some quite interesting information. Because, you know, a Rhapsody model, it might have hundreds of diagrams inside it, thousands of elements, knowing where to browse to in the model and things like that. Well, it can be quite daunting. This effectively just flattens the model and allows you to start asking questions, summarizing, explaining things. It's quite an interesting use case, actually. Okay, I think you get the picture around. Yeah. Yeah, I know, I understand. I honestly don't know, Graham. It would have access to the information because it's all in the model. But I don't know how much training, in terms of prompt training, was done in order to do these things. So it's an interesting question. I don't know yet. Okay. So that's sort of what's happening with Rhapsody 10. Now let's switch to Rhapsody Systems Engineer. So for those of you that are sort of not familiar, so Rhapsody 10 has been around, you know, for several decades now, and it was originally a UML tool, but then, you know, we added SysML v1 on it and lots of other profiles and things on Rhapsody 10. So Rhapsody 10 effectively started as a software engineering tool, moved in as a systems engineering tool, and probably Rhapsody 10 will end up being a software engineering tool again, because we've now got Rhapsody Systems Engineer. And the reason sort of behind this is because of SysML v2. So, I don't know, quite a few years ago, the stories I heard were that sort of systems engineers weren't happy with having an object-oriented language, which is SysML v1, which was based on UML. They wanted their own language because they're special. I don't know, right? So SysML v2 has been working its way through the standards bodies for many years. And I thought I'd just put up, you know, a couple of slides before we jump into sort of Rhapsody SE, just in case you're not sort of familiar with some of the background around some of the drivers for this new language, which is SysML version 2. But it was all around sort of improving things like precision and expressiveness. So you'll see in SysML v2, for example, it has an expression language, it has a textual notation along with a graphical notation. SysML v2 standardizes not only sort of the meta model and the way that you view these models, but it also standardizes things like APIs. So there'll be consistent APIs between different vendors. It also standardizes the configuration management. So configuration management is part of SysML v2, and the configuration management model that is behind that. Again, that should be consistent between vendors. So it has a much bigger scope and ambition than SysML v1. Again, it's possibly too much detail, but I thought I'd just, for those of you that understand SysML v1, where you've got these concepts of things like blocks, I guess that's the main thing, parts and blocks and things like that. In SysML v1, it's an object-oriented language. So you have usages, so instances, and then you have types. So part is effectively an instance of a block. And really, you could only have those sort of instances with the types, because it was a strongly typed environment. In SysML v2, they've effectively removed that restriction. So now you can use SysML v2 a bit like Visio. So you can literally just start to draw let me call them, they're parts really, but effectively rectangles, draw connections between them, and you don't need to worry about any type system behind the scenes. So you can really use it a bit like Visio if you wanted to, but then you can start to get more formal and start using the definitions. But effectively on the left-hand side here, these are all things called usages, and you can just build a model pretty much entirely using these things. And v2, they try to make the language very consistent. So you always have a usage and a definition for pretty much everything. Okay, so I thought I'd just chuck this in as well. So I was talking to Aran Gary last week, who's sort of working inside the OMG, sort of representing IBM, and he says that everything is signed off in terms of SysML 2.0, other than a few signatures. Which I don't know if you're following, Graham, but
as far as I'm aware, they didn't submit it quite in time, because it needs to be submitted like a month before the meeting. The meeting was in March, last one. probably coming up to 2 meters, so could have been done, I would have thought, this week.
Right.
Summer meeting. Then I think it takes about a month to go to the actual final ball, so it should be done.
Yeah, it was that last few little procedural things that I think.
Basically, they were a bit late submitting it.
Right. So hopefully imminent. You know, I thought I'd throw this in because I thought this is quite interesting. So the you know, this is a new language. It has bugs in it, like everything else. So they're already planning on like SysML 2.1 to do some fixes for gaps that they've identified in 2.0. But one of the things that IBM has really had an input into is the way that the graphical notation model is implemented inside SysML2, and the model that we built inside Rhapsody SE, that's effectively been adopted by the OMG, and the other vendors have sort of agreed as well. So IBM's had quite a big impact on some of the latter stages of 2.0. There are other working groups happening with SysML2, so they're still trying to work out how you can simulate these models, because apparently that wasn't one of the primary aims of SysML2. So that's going to be interesting, how that actually all pans out. Also, how you move from SysML v1 to v2. There's another working group trying to work out how you can effectively do that. On the surface, it seems it should be straightforward, but apparently not. And then work's now started on effectively the SysML v2 version of UAF. So, so everything's sort of going to start shuffling behind SysML v2 as well now. So Rhapsody SE, some of the things, what should I point out? I think one of the main things, and you'll see it in a second, is, I don't know, what was it, 2.5 years ago, product management within IBM, we'd built a prototype for a SysML v2 product. And then the big decision was, do we build SysML v2 on top of Rhapsody 10 or 9 as it would have been there, or do we build a brand new product? I was always for building a new product. Other people were not, but we have built a brand new product. And of course, when you build a new product, you don't have all the legacy to deal with, but on the other hand, you don't have any foundations to really build on. So we've got a brand new web-based product. It's built using all of the latest sort of UI browser-based technology. So it's React Flow, it's container-based, it's using GraphQL, it's using Postgres database, it's cloud ready. In the future, we might even be able to do things like multi-tenanted SaaS and things like that with it. It's designed to be able to do that. So it's the newest product by far in terms of technology within the sort of ELM portfolio of tools. You know, we've been working on that. We've also spent quite a lot of time working on the next effectively version of the Harmony methodology to take advantage of the SysML v2 capabilities. And I'll show you a demonstration of that in a second. We've just released the 4th version. So we I think it was 1.1 was the first release of Rhapsody SE last year. Siemens, if you go and look, they've just released their version of this product as well, which is basically the same product, but just a different banner on the top. But big things in 1.4, tables, OSLC linking to the other domains. What else have we got? Things like search across the model, improvements around sort of global configuration support and things like that. You see a list of improvements over there. Let's keep going. More stuff coming. So there'll be another release of Rhapsody SE at the end of this quarter. 1.5. So this product's getting released every 3 months. That's the duration of the, and it works on about a 3-week sprint. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to show you a video of starting from scratch, building our little demonstration CIC model. So it's a car interior controller. This is going to use some of the new capabilities that were added in 1.4. I've speeded this up by 10%. I keep thinking watching someone build a model is like watching somebody painting a wall, really, isn't it? So I hope it's a bit more interesting than that. But it'll give you an idea in terms of sort of the look and feel of the product, how easily you can sort of drive it and use it. And I'll give a commentary as we go along. So here we go. So this is the main, so this is running a browser. We have our projects view. You have effectively projects you're allowed to access in terms of a user. You're on the access control list. And then active projects. These are projects where you've made changes to. So you see here, these are all the projects I have access to, and these are the main branch. And what we'll do, okay, so I need to look at the screen. So on the project, you can effectively change users and also specify which other OSLC sources you're connected to. So we're creating a project, we're using the Harmony template. So this is an empty model apart from the Harmony template. You'll see the tool gives you a list of all of the views. So these are created as part of a template. Initially, we'll go into this sort of system context view. And here we're just expanding all the different layers of information. So Harmony's around requirements, functional, logical, physical. Because it's a Harmony project, we've also got a Harmony library. So this is another thing we're supporting in 1.4 now, is now user libraries. So a library in SysML v2, you can basically create your own DSLs using libraries. You can create your own sort of custom types pretty easily within the language. So here I'm going to import some requirements, and I have the requirements for this project in textual notation. You'll see this is SysML textual notation. Just pull them into the product. Here's the requirements that were imported. Visualize them as a table. So tables are new in 1.4 as well. I think in 1.5, we're going to have matrix views as well. The sort of table builder for adding new columns. So I'll just put a requirement definition. You'll see that there's stakeholder requirements. That is a requirement type, not use requirement type, and that was defined inside the Harmony library. And I could reference that in terms of inside the textual notation. Just save the model. When you save the model, you'll see in the top right-hand corner, it's now automatically created my own branch off the main. So now I'm working in my own space. Okay, well now, so the Harmony template creates a system part. I'm just renaming it now to CIC. And now I'll show you building a little bit of structure using textual notation. It's a bit wrong way around, really. You should do the use cases first, but we're doing the system context first, effectively describing what's outside of the system, which are the door and the light, and then connecting these into the system, which is our CIC. What I'll then do is use the visualization. So you can use, it's quite nice using the textual notation along with the automated view creation to build views. I'll just show you now effectively the model structure back in the system context view. For those of you, no, actually, I think I've missed it. The system context view, this is a custom view type that comes along with the Harmony profile. So again, just completing the relations. So these are the relations that we described using the textual notation. Now using some of the sort of quick add capabilities on the diagram, so automatically creating parts and connections. There's a lot of little nice UI features like this within the product. And just create some automated layout of the diagrams. Okay. Save that. Let's now build our use case view. So based on the requirements we've got, we want to manage the interior light of the vehicle. And we're basically now going to take this use case and we're going to bind it to those parts that represent the sort of system actors. So the things that are outside of the system. And System LV2 has got this, I don't know, I think we're still not sure if we're convinced of the way that it works. But effectively, you have to create these actors, a subject and actors on the use case, and then you bind those to the parts that you want them to be connected to. Again, you can sort of drag and drop, automatically create the actor parameters and the bindings just using one drag and drop within the tool. So we try to sort of improve the usability. Again, you'll see here, these are system actors. So these are custom types that are coming from the Harmony profile using the V2 extension mechanism. And then what I'll do now is just use the model checker. It will show me the fact that we've got a use case in the requirements layer. It's complete, but it hasn't been propagated down to the next layer down, which for us is the functional layer. So we can run an automation that effectively then builds for us in the next layer down, the functional layer, a system context view. So this has been automatically generated for us. So the automation is created into part definition, port definitions, I should say, and interfaces, and also ports for us. Here you can see also for traceability between the layers, we're taking advantage of some of the System LV2 functionality. So that colon greater than is subsetting in System LV2. So it's a way, it's like an inheritance, but it's also, we can use it for traceability as well to connect our layers together. And if we add anything into the higher level, of course, it gets propagated down into the lower level as well. And then the final thing to do is we'll create a little bit of behavior for this use case, the manage interior light. So here, effectively, the behavior we're going to build is when we receive an event saying the door of the vehicle is opened or closed, we want to turn the light or do something with the light inside the vehicle. And so we're using accept actions. Oh, sorry. Hit the back button. I'll just move it on. There you go. So again, we can type in textual notation into these, and the tool understands the textual notation. So effectively, everything within these in textual notation here is hoverable, and then you can click on it, and it will take you into the diagram, into the model browser on the side, rather. And again, some are using the UI automation. So these are effectively creating, the dotted arrows are called successions inside System LV2. So it's a bit like a control flow in System LV1. As you see, you've got completion with the textual notations, it understands the model, and then sort of dropping things in into the views. So hopefully you get a little bit of an idea here in terms of sort of the way the product drives. and with inside the harmony profile as well that we've used. Okay. Another little video around OSLC linking. So again, this has been enhanced inside with 1.4. So now Rhapsody SE, the branch that we're working in is being bound into a global config. So we're now connecting doors next into, actually in some of the other tools as well, into Rhapsody SE. So here you see this system context, the view itself is being linked into all of the other OSLC domains in terms of support. Good. You read my mind. I was curious to know a little bit more. Okay. Right. So what I'm going to do then, I think OSLC linking, fine. We know all about that. The final thing I want to do is now, can I switch? Right. If I leave. Okay, excellent. Right. So I'm just going to, this is the worst possible place to do a product demo from. So, because I'm like having a look here, but I just wanted to show you, if I go, I'm just going to open up the completed CIC diagram and just show you a few bits and pieces. So again, here you're starting to see, this is my projects that I have access to. You're starting to see like branching information and all sorts of stuff like that we have inside this. I'm going to open up the model. The tool's telling me I've opened up the project, but I've already got a branch already loaded. So it's sort of hinting me, are you sure you don't want to be working on the branch where you've already been making changes? I'm going to ignore that for the time being. And I just want to show you, it's interesting, it's a bit smaller. Just want to go down into, well, let's drive it this way. So here's some of these completed, so control lights that we were talking about before. Here's the completed diagram, like so. I don't know how easy you can see that, but effectively, you know, this is where I started. But within the body of the actions, you can also start to use the expression language. And again, this all of this language is standardized in System LV2, and eventually, when they work out how to do it, this will all be executable. So you're going to be able to have some very nicely specified models in terms of doing validation. Where else did I want to go? So you have these, so we're in the functional layer. So here we're doing purely functional modeling, you know, when something happens outside the system, how does it affect the system? And then what does the system do to the outside? But we're not thinking yet about how are we allocating this behavior onto effectively the structure of the model. This is what we do start to think about in terms of the logical architecture. So here we have a bigger breakdown of the system now. And so we're starting to be able to have, this is our CIC here. And now we're breaking it down into subparts here. We're able to, you know, you've got the same concepts in V1, ports, things like that. We've got flow-on connectors, so you can start to effectively map events and information as they flow through. So that's what that black arrow is indicating. So you've got this structure. And then, of course, what we will do is, in terms of then our use cases, I'll come down to control lights, the behavior. The same activity views again, but now effectively what we can do is lasso the behavior with something called a swim lane, which you see here, and then effectively that says door handling. Then effectively it's a way of what in V1 we would call allocation. in V2, they've sort of changed things. And effectively now what we're saying is when we build this swim lane and effectively map it to a part, this part is now going to perform these actions. That's what we're saying in V2. And you'll see that, again, let me just zoom in a little bit in terms of, so there's door handling. So I can just click on this and it'll take me to where it is inside the model. And then you'll see on the left-hand side now that our door handling part is performing all these different things. So the tool itself, in terms of as soon as you start dragging things into this swim lane, it's automatically creating for you these entries for doing this mapping between like the behavior and the structure, Graham.
You do multiple allocation. Yeah, multiple things you should be able to perform those. Right.
I don't know if you can, so you're thinking, right, yeah. I suspect you have to do it twice, but I don't know. Good question. Not something that I've tried. I'll try it offline in a second, actually. And then finally, you know, when we get down to if this is the last thing that I will do in terms of giving myself some space, physical side of things, you know, build a physical architecture of the system. So here you've got effectively, it's really difficult, I don't have a mouse, there we go. So you've got modeling physical parts of the system, and then this is where you can start to allocate your system parts. So this is where we do. So allocation now is almost a thing between parts. So you can say one part is effectively allocated to another part. So we're effectively allocating those logical things that we had, logical parts, we have a logical layer to the things that, the parts that are now representing physical things inside the system. I know there's loads more inside this model and I've clearly run out of time, but hopefully you can get a feel for Rhapsody SE. I'm just running this locally on my machine, but it's so fast. And in terms of because it's all running in one environment in terms of the configuration management and the model and stuff like that, compared to say Rhapsody 10 where you've got RMM and all that infrastructure, this is such a nicer tool to use in terms of working with, when you're working with different streams and things like that. Yeah, I haven't shown you like the diff merge. We've got collaborative editing, so you can have multiple people editing the diagrams at the same time. Loads of functionality in the product. That's really hard for me to demonstrate, you know, solo in front of you. But I think that's, yeah, okay, I'm done. Any more? Yeah, any more sort of questions? I'm happy to show things offline because I'll be here all day. But yeah, lots of things happening in the model-based engineering world, which is really good.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. As Steve said, if you get any immediate questions, I know, John, you've got a question about data segregation as well, so just catch Steve during the day. Okay, thank you. Next up, we've got Nikolai.
Okay. That mic wasn't there when I tried it. Okay. That makes a bit different the demo because there's no space for my mouse and it's up and down. Okay, let's try and see. So yeah, thank you and welcome. My name is Nikolai Stein. I am the founder and general manager of Requisys. We are a German-based IBM business partner, and we are doing a lot of things about ELM and DOORS 9 automation. Before introducing myself, just a question into the round. Who of you is using Doors 9? Okay, just a few. And Doors Next Generation? Okay, more or less the same number. So we get back after that to that. So I've been working since 2002 in the area of Doors 9. So I did a lot of DXL coding, and as the time has passed, I started to work with the IBM ELM systems. So I learned more about the APIs and the technology stuff and so on. Worked with customers on global configuration management, and also about technical things like Doors 9 security, Kubernetes, running an own ELM SaaS environment, and last but not least, starting to work with artificial intelligence and IBM ELM. So I have the challenge to give you an introduction to our tools within 45 minutes, and also give you some live demos. So I just put on your seatbelts. I try to get some speed. So to our company, we've been founded nearly 18 years ago, have 2 offices, one in Berlin, one in Stuttgart, building a lot of solutions for Doors 9, Doors Next Generation, especially, for example, the RecIF manager for RecIF Exchange, the Doors Next API gateway. I'll come back later to that. Doors 9 to DNG migration, and also the AI Copilot for Doors Next that we have recently built. We also are a SaaS service provider and run ELM and Rhapsody SE environments in our own data center. We are also a specialist on RecIF and IBM ELM, and support also other tool vendors implementing interfaces to the IBM solutions. So just to make a bridge to the last presentation, we do provide evaluation for Rhapsody SE. So whenever you would like to try out that what have been showed before, you can simply register an evaluation version of Rhapsody SE. Just go to sysml.app/eval, and you can order your own evaluation version, which is then run in our SaaS environment. So that's what we do for a lot of German customers. I think it's the easiest way to start with Rhapsody SE, as it's currently not so easy to get and running from IBM. So just to give a short overview what we have done. So I start with Doors 9. We have created tools for document generation, for synchronization objects within Doors 9. We built a RecIF Exchange tool. We have a migration tool built for easy migration. We have an offline review tool created for Doors 9. Then we have a security proxy implemented for Doors 9, adding more layer of security and also providing multi-factor authentication. We have a Doors bouncer that locks off idle users. And for the ELM solution, we have built that migration tool. We have a tool for RecIF interchange. We have our SaaS solution that covers the whole ELM solution built packaged with our solution called Requisys ELM.ng. And last but not least, Requisys Orca, which is an AI Copilot for DNG. So I will show you some of the products, some with some slides and some with some demo. So I would like to start with the Doors 9 products and start with the Requisys DSP that allows you to add multi-factor authentication to the legacy Doors application. So one thing you need to know that the Doors server itself doesn't perform any kind of authentication or authorization. It's all done in the client. And we add a layer in between that goes into the communication channel between the Doors client and the Doors servers, and check all the requests sending from the client to the Doors server. If this check is okay with the implemented ACLs on the Doors server, and only if these are allowed, and this will be passed into the server. It's been 6 years in the market, run on instances with about 1,000 concurrent users. So it's kind of proven that it doesn't have any impact on performance. So I think that's already, I said most of those. How does it work if we implement multi-factor authentication for DORS 9? So as the DORS client doesn't offer it itself, we created a kind of launcher application that starts before the DORS client is starting. It will then perform authentication against our access key provider, which then will ask the local authentication provider of the client based on OIDC to provide a valid authentication session. And when this session has been authorized, there will be a token transferred from the OIDC provider, which could be Azure ID or Ping ID or whatever you have in your company as the identity provider. And then once this session has been authorized, we generate a kind of access key. So that is basically the KeyDB file that you can then use in your DORS client to create an authenticated session to the DORS server. And this will then be sent back, oops, wrong direction, to the launcher. And the launcher puts this KeyDB file somewhere in a private folder of the user, and then afterwards starts the DORS client in the way that the DORS client is using that KeyDB file. And that basically allows then that the DORS client creates a TLS authenticated session, which will in the first place not be directly to the DORS server. It will be to Requisys DSP that will then check the information within that KeyDB file, whether this connection has been authorized and what user is coded into that KeyDB file. And then DSP knows perfectly who is the authenticated user coming here just before even the DORS client, the user has entered his credentials. And then we can check that against the DORS data and then check all the requests that is coming then along the session for validity, if this is correct or if there has been something tampered in the client so that there are data being pulled or changed that is not allowed to. So once it's been implemented, it could look like this. For example, it could use your custom OIDC provider. It could be used Keycloak together with Google multi-factor authentication. It can use a smart card or Azure ID or other things like passkey. So it supports all kind of multi-factor authentication and also then in the end provides single sign-on. So let's just do a quick demo how this basically looks like. I hope the internet connection will work because I need a connection to my company authentication provider. So I can choose to log in with PKE card, select the right card. As I'm already authenticated, the card do not have to put in the PIN. Otherwise, I would have need to put in the PIN here. And then I will directly be logged into DORS without entering the username or password because we have enabled certificate-based SSO within the DORS client. So coming to the next product, which is Requisys Mix, as our migration tool. Requisys Mix is a tool that's built in as DXL extension, so that you can directly start it from the DORS client. You simply start by mapping the DORS module onto the target model into DNG. It will then automatically pull all the information about the type system and allows you to simply use drag and drop and some automated rules that are put inside the tool to do a mapping between the type system that you have in DORS 9 and the type system that you will have in DORS next generation. Because in most cases, you will kind of try to optimize your setup, then you will always try to have a new type system afterwards in DNG. And to have an easy migration, the best idea is to align the data model while doing the migration and not doing preparation steps in Doors 9 or doing some cleanup afterwards in Doors Next. So the idea is to have a simple migration tool that in the end gives you data that is usable right away in Doors Next. So the key facts, it's fully integrated in Doors 9 as it's built in DXL. It provides live data type mapping into DNG. So it's not that you have to export something and then you have a definition on file. It will directly pull the system. It allows you to give some pre-checks to identify possible data losses. For example, in Doors Next Generation, you are not allowed to use text formatting outside the primary text attribute, and things like that can be checked upfront before performing the migration. It uses the REST API OSLC to write the data directly into Doors Next Generation. So there's no need to export things into a file, then go to DNG and import data. So it's all kind of one click once it's being configured. The configuration and the migration itself are two separated steps. So you could take time to prepare everything, you prepare all the modules for the migration, and when the day is done to perform the migration, you simply click on the button and then the data will be migrated right away. But it does not only provide migration, it also provides you synchronization one way from Doors 9 to Doors Next Generation that will allow you to have special use cases, like you have some teams that still work in Doors 9, but you have teams that work in Doors Next Generation, and you want the data that you're still working in Doors 9 is regularly populated to Doors Next Generation. So you can have this, time where you're using both tools. One team will use Doors 9 and the others have already been migrated. And so you can push the data over as kind of an update, which will then modify the artifacts that have been changed. Okay, so I think that we'll just, in a matter of time, just go fast over it and then demonstrate it to save the time to get right into the tool. So I have the Doors 9 module, and then I prepare the migration of a single module. There are automation steps that will allow you to do the same thing for multiple modules at a time, but it's to understand it, it's best to just start with one module. So you simply start that UI for performing the migration, and then you select a target component where you would like to migrate the data to. So let's just create a change set and use use a model that has not been used before. Let's choose that one. Okay, so I just copy the URL of the target module. Then I paste the URL in the system. Then I need to log in again, as I haven't logged in today. Then the system will load the information about the module. So it says where I've defined to migrate it to, what's the target stream, in this case, in this type of change set. I select a baseline that I want to migrate, whether I want to migrate the current version or an older baseline. I then select a view to be migrated. So we will not migrate everything mandatory. We select a view that contains all the data to be migrated. Then we select an enumeration attribute that is being then used to map the objects to the target artifact type. And as next step, we select the mapping about this enumeration attribute value to the target artifact type. So we have values in this object type attribute called heading, feature, information, and so on. And these have been automatically pre-mapped according to a rule module that you can modify to your own needs. And so you see that these have been already mapped. And then to map the other ones, simply drag and drop the target artifact type that you would like to use. And then you do the mapping for all the attributes, individual per each artifact type. So there are also the module attributes you can map. So these have been automatically pre-mapped by the information in the rule module. So you only have to check and then decide for additional attributes to be used. You also have here enumeration values. If you have enumeration values, you also can map the enumeration values to the new target type system. So this can also be done in the pre-mapping rules. So you don't have to map it on every module. So you see that you can different enumeration literals in DORS 9 and DORS next generation. And once everything is checked, you can see a summary that contains all the mapping information. You can export the summary and send it, for example, to the author in order to approve the mapping, for example. Then you can run a pre-check that gives you information upfront what content might be lost. And when you're finished, you could then either close that and come back later to perform the migration, or you click on the migrate button, and this will then perform the migration of this module. So this is a kind of small module, will just take a couple of seconds, so it's already finished. So for a module for 1,200 objects, it takes about 2.5 minutes. So if you have modules that have 10,000 objects, it takes about half an hour. So when you then go to the module in DNG and refresh the content, you see basically everything is there with the objects, all E objects, then DORS tables if exists, etc., etc. Okay. When I'll just go over the slides because these are just backup in case of the live migration isn't working for network issues or something. Yeah. If you're performing migration of a whole project, and you don't have to do it module by module. You have the migration manager that allows you to create the connection between DORS 9 modules and DNG more faster and give you also an overview about all the migration status. Once the migration of the modules have been done, there's also a step called the link migration, which will then recreate the links that you had upfront in DORS 9 in DORS next generation. And during that step, you can select all the all the link types and select them by link module as a default, and then have for every link set, you can have individual settings in case that you need them. Okay, let's go to the next product that's called the RecF Manager. The RecF Manager is for exchanging data within DORS next generation to other tools that will allow you to orchestrate the whole export and import process among multiple components. And in the next version, it will also support the export and import the links across components. So as IBM is currently not supporting this, we are doing an migration, link export and link import afterwards without using RecF. So you're then able to export all the data containing also the links that go across components. So that's one of the specialties. Yeah, that's especially interesting for the defense industry that have a high side and a low side, that they are then able to export whole sets of DNG modules, even if there are multiple components from the high side to the low side and vice versa. Okay, so how does it look like? Let's find the right folder. So for the exporting side and the RecF Manager, okay, it looks like that we have some connection issues. Okay, then I go to the slides as a backup. So one interesting part of the RecF Manager, one of the important parts is, especially if you are a supplier, that you are able to map the attributes and artifact types and link types, so on, nearly as shown as in the requisites mixed migration tool. You're able to map the attributes, enumeration values, and so on while importing the data. So whenever you get a package from your customer, you can map the attributes to your own attributes, and you have no need to create new ones, which makes it more easier if you're also using reporting services and so on, that you can still use your own data model instead of importing the data model of your customer. You don't have the issues with these renamed attributes that always occur if you're importing multiple modules using RECA-F from DOORS 9, for example. So all these stuff can be captured by the mapping that allows you to import directly into your mapping. The requisites toolbox also contains a tool called the compare tool that allows you to import to compare multiple modules at the same time between multiple streams or baselines. It will then in the end create a Excel file where every module is one tab, and in this module you see the content, including also pictures and OLE objects and so on, and with an indicator and a change information about objects that have been changed between the two compared versions. And we also have built in a RECA-F viewer that allows you to view the content that you have exported or view the content that you would like to import before performing the RECA-F import. Okay. Then we have this DNG API gateway. I don't know if any one of you have tried to implement automations for DOORS Next Generation. That can be quite painful because most of the APIs are not so well documented and the performance isn't so well. So we worked in the last 5 years a lot of reverse engineering all the APIs for different versions of DNG because we needed those information for tools like RECA-F Manager and so on. And so we created a layer that allows us to access data in DOORS Next Generation, modify data in DOORS Next Generation, and then we put up an API layer up front so that we enable other implementation teams to use that API instead of the DNG API, and the data will then be transformed in the background to values that DNG understands and vice versa. So if data is coming out of DNG, we will transform those in simple JSON using a simple REST CRUD API that normally every developer can develop against it. And so it will allow you to read data, modify the module structure, and so on and so on. So it gives you some easy functions how to interact with the data in DOORS Next Generation. And the documentation is available as open API. So it's previously it was called Swagger. So you have the documentation as a file. You simply can generate code from it or try it on these tryout sites that come with the open API. Yeah, and especially it takes care of that the data is retrieved the most performant and resource consuming, the less resource consuming way. So what we've seen out in the wild that people have been writing Python scripts and so on, and they use basic authentication, which basically means that on every call there's an authentication request to the JTS. And so we covered all those topics to take care of that the system is not overwhelmed by badly written integrations. Okay, so let's coming to the last one, but maybe the most interesting one for you. I hope I can show that live afterwards. So yeah, just go into it. Okay, looks good. So the requisites Orca is an AI co-pilot for DOORS Next Generation, which comes as a widget. it's directly integrated into the user interface of DOORS Next Generation, and it has two main functions. One is the module AI, which directly interacts with the module, and the rec workspace, which allows you to also integrate data outside this module. So let's start with the module AI. You can do tasks, whatever you can prompt on. So currently in this version, it's completely free text prompt. So you write what you want and the AI will kind of do it. But in the next versions, we will provide a list of predefined prompts which make it easier to start. So let's do some simple thing like translation, just put in translate and then on send. Then the selected artifacts will be sent to the AI, and the AI detects that it's a change request to requirements, which will then end up with tasks that are executed for each artifact and will then perform the task. So it could be tasks like translate or optimize or change to a certain, some certain rules that need to be followed for the requirements and so on. So everything that kind of changes existing requirements, for example. And so it will give you the response in a way that you then afterwards are able, oh, it doesn't work because I need to change it. Sure. Okay. Then I have to do it again. So right. So simple then can update the artifacts by just pushing the button. It also could be other tasks that would create new objects. For example, I could have a prompt to generate test cases, which will then not modify existing artifacts, but creating new ones, for example. This might take a while because the response is much longer. And it will then afterwards give you a document structure that you then afterwards can directly import either into the same DNG module or into another DNG module. The thing is that you need to select a target where you need to put in those things. Okay, that's weird. It was not supposed to happen. Try that again. Okay, that's what was supposed to happen. You get a document structure that you then afterwards can select a target where you want to put it. So normally it would make sense to put it in another document, but just to keep it simple, I just put it in here, and that will then create the artifacts directly in DNG. So it could be tasks like creating some requirements according to a list of text and so on, for example. But currently, you need to know how to write prompts. That is something that we will change in a way for the future, that we will provide basic prompts as example that you can load. But it, currently it directly interacts with DNG, and that is the point, what makes it quite interesting. So for the rec workspace, I don't know who is familiar with rec, which is an AI type of thing. So just one. So it's called retrieved augmented generation, which basically means that before the AI is doing something, there will be a search over documents or DNG modules to provide information that could be relevant. So for example, you could ask a question to a certain topic, then the AI will identify the topic, look up text passages that could be relevant, and then provide the AI with the context of that information. So for example, you could do things like comparing your requirements that you have in the DOORS module with a regulation document. And that is currently what I would like to show you. But first I will kind of break one of my requirements. I will change that here to a different voltage. So to find related requirements, you select a document. So you could either upload a file or multiple files. It could be PDF documents, Word document, PowerPoint, also RegIF that, for example, contains regulation, customer requirements, whatever. Or you could upload DNG modules by simply just clicking on that button. So that will then upload the whole DNG module that you currently have opened. So that's then afterwards available and indexed for all these reg-based use cases. So for example, if you have a system requirement document, you could upload the system requirement document so that you are then afterwards able to compare your requirements with the system requirements and see if there are any related requirements being found and if there is a contradiction between your requirements and the system requirements, for example. So in my showcase, I will use that document. This is a European Union regulation about a turn indicator, and this document is also having some simple requirements coming from that area. And so I select one requirement and I select one or multiple documents where I would like to check it against. And then I simply push on the search button, which will then, that's a bit weird without having a mouse, that will then find similar requirements. So this is the text from the requirements from the document, from the PDF. It will also tell you that this text passage has been found on page 10, and it also indicates that there is a kind of conflict. So, you know, I've kind of broken the requirement up front because I changed the voltage. And now the system will give me information that the voltage in the document and the voltage in your requirement is different. So there may be a conflict, so that user may then afterwards have to fix it. So in a future version, we might also provide a kind of suggestion how you should change then your requirements so that this conflict is not happening, but currently it's just showing you what the conflict is. That's the one use case of finding similar requirements or related requirements and make a conflict check. And the other thing is that you simply can chat with your documents, for example, asking questions. So before writing your requirements, you could have asked the system, what are the voltages for LED lights? And then the system would have set you up front that 48 volts is not the right solution. So that is what the AI will give you back. So you have then the information, what you should then consider when writing your requirement. Yeah, that's basically what Orca is doing. And that's all already shown. So it's just the backup in case of it's not working. So let's, before I finish, let's try again if the regif manager is then working again. The network connection issue is solved. Doesn't look like. Okay. Then I don't know, can't show that live, unfortunately. So, but then we have more time to question. If you are interested in one of our product, then you can directly talk with me or afterwards just book a meeting to go deeper into the discussions.
Thank you, Nikolai. Any questions for Nikolai on any of those fascinating plugins and additions?
Really loud.
The question from the chat is, do you use Orca for a local model? Is it possible to train the model with local data to get more specific responses?
So currently we connect to any kind of AI service. It could be either running a local AI model, for example, running on Olama, or it can be an AI service from Mistral or ChatGPT or IBM, what's next, whatever. So every AI API can be connected that is compatible with OpenAI. So most of the AIs that are running, you can access as an API, can then connect it via that view. And so if you're running the model locally and you are able to train it, then of course you can train it. But Orca itself will only use the AI. It will not collect data for training purposes. So what I forgot to mention, these workspace where I uploaded the documents, these are private for every user. And the reason for that is that it makes it easier for a kind of access control and so on, because only the user can access his own data. So we assume when he's uploaded a DNG module, then at least at that point he had access to the DNG module. And with documents the same, so it makes it easier not to cover all those topics specifically, like access control and comparing the access control with DNG access rights and so on. So we have a simple private workspace for every user.
More questions? No? Thank you very much, Nikolai.
Welcome.
We're going to go into AI tour now, I think, Sarah. Yeah, and then we're going to break for lunch. Okay, and Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. So I hope you've all had a good lunch and well refreshed for the afternoon. And we've got some really good sessions this afternoon on the other side of the coin about how the tools are actually being used and the use cases. First up this afternoon, Stephen Turner from East West Rail. So welcome, Stephen.
Is the mic on? Do I need to, is it coming across? Do I need to press the button or something? Yeah. Keep speaking. Check, check. My days in the rock band are long behind me. Are we good? Keep speaking, keep speaking. They don't pay me enough for that. Are we good? Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. All right, brilliant. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I've got the post-lunch slot, so you can nap if you want to for the next half an hour. How long have I got till? Roughly, remind me. Sorry, you'll give me a warning, won't you? Anyway, so yeah. Okay. All right. But anyway, my name is System Engineering for East West Rail, and I'm going to give a bit of an overview, very briefly, an overview of the project. But I'm not really here to talk about the project itself. But I do want to give you an overview of some of the system engineering approaches that we've implemented in East West Rail, how we've applied Doors Next, and some of the challenges that we have looking forward into some of the later stages of the project that we are about to move into. So a quick overview of the EWR project. The East West Rail has a number of strategic objectives. It is east-west public transport connectivity. I don't know if you know railways very well. They tend to come from London and go out. Very few of them actually kind of to cross east to west. So one of our objectives is to provide an east-west connectivity between Oxford and Cambridge. Fundamentally, our railway is there to try and stimulate economic growth. Improve housing opportunities, the Oxford to Cambridge arc, as it's called, and I'll show you a slide in a second, but it's seen to have huge strategic growth opportunities. And so we're hoping the railway will help to unlock that and the revenue from that in terms of taxes and everything else. We're here to improve journey times and connectivity. So if you want to in Cambridge by public transport at the moment, you would get a coach. We travel all the way into London and all the way, which is pretty slow. We're trying to provide a sustainable and value for money public solution, meet passenger forecast demand and future demand. So looking at how much growth we might have in the network when all of this strategic economic growth is materialized. And we have some provision for maintaining and enhancing rail freight along our route. We have some freight running today, and we'd like a little bit more freight to run in the future. So here's our route, and let me just talk you through a little bit. Well, still come through. We have Oxford. I'll do it from here then. So we have Oxford through to Milton Keynes and Bletchley, which is about in the middle there, and then on to Bedford. Now, some of that is already existing railway. Some of it is being in the process currently of being upgraded to be able to carry more passengers and more demand. But the bit that goes, we don't like straight lines in East West Rail, but the bit that goes all kind of wavy from Bedford through to Cambridge is new railway line. There was a railway line there previously, something that used to be called the Varsity Railway Line. But in the 60s, Dr. Beeching decided that wasn't making a lot of money and cut it away. And all of that railway line and that land that was there previously is all built over now. So we can't put back the line that was already there previously. So it's a new route through new sections of land. What I was going to try and illustrate But the coloured dots on there all represent certain high-tech, high-value industries that are in this, as I said, this Oxford to Cambridge arc. So we have in green, we have various advanced manufacturing sectors. You know, a lot of Formula One is based around Milton Keynes and that area. We've got a lot of life science and biotech industries, particularly clustered around Cambridge and Oxford. There's aviation and aerospace industries, future transport industries, energy sectors, creative and digital. And so we had this, you know, we had this sort of high strategic growth opportunity here that is just failing to be fully maximized because of limitations in public transport and some of the road and other rail connections as well, but primarily because of an absence of public transport. So obviously what we're trying to do here is fix that and allow those industries to flourish through better connections. I'm not going to get into the scope of the project in too much detail, but the main pieces of work is, as I said, a new section of railway between Stewartby and Cambridge. That includes some new stations, new car parks and facilities, improvement works to the existing railway line between Oxford and Bedford and the approaches into the Cambridge station that is there today already. Because we're going to put more trains now into those sections, we need to upgrade the network to be able to cover that. New structures, viaducts, tunnels, bridges, cutting embankments, as you'd expect in terms of a major infrastructure program. Because we're putting more trains an hour through the existing network, a lot of the existing level crossings that are there at the moment become unsafe. And so we are looking to close a number of them. And those that we aren't closing, we will try and mitigate the safety risk so that we're not hurting anybody. We butt up against existing highways all over the place. Some of them are what's known as the strategic road network. So they are sort of A roads and motorways, and some of them are sort of local authorities. There are also water courses, existing utilities, so the utilities need to be diverted out of the way. Water courses might need to be moved around a bit. And obviously, as it is these days, we have to look to mitigate the environmental effects and climate change and weather events, so that we don't flood things and that we provide a resilient railway system. So in a nutshell, very briefly, that's the scope of the program that we have to deal with. It's very geographically spread out across quite a long part of the route. But let me talk a little bit about the system engineering approach that we're putting in to try and manage all of that. Now, look, this is probably not unique to East West Railway. I'm sure many major programs have the same challenges here, but I'm just going to try and illustrate some of the things that we do have that are challenges. We have a lot of what I guess we would call data asset types. You know, requirements is an asset type, data asset type. There's many different other data asset types that we have. Looks like it's blinking now. And for various legacy and historic reasons, quite a lot of those asset types, data assets, are managed using different software applications. So we have a software application for managing our schedule and our planning. We have a software application for managing our risks, and a variety of simulation and modeling tools and all sorts of stuff. So we have these sort of pots of repositories of information all over the place that we have to work with. But we do recognize that those data assets quite often need to link or talk or interface with each other. So some of the challenge we have is, well, how do we get that to happen when we've got all of these different systems and tools in place? That hasn't come through brilliantly on that screen, but this is just to illustrate sort of the data architecture that we're dealing with here. So we've got models and simulations. So some of these are analytical models, some of them are conceptual models. We've got the output of certain governance, of decisions and change requests. We've got communications with our contractors, technical queries, and early warning notices. We also have a huge variety of stakeholders along the route. So Some of those stakeholders can be sort of statutory bodies like utility companies and the highways. And obviously a lot of those stakeholders are just the people who own the land and the farmers and local communities and things. And then there's a lot of information that we gather about when they give us feedback on our designs through the consultation processes that we have to go through. You know, we have to record that data and analyze it and consider it in our design. We've got a lot of what I would call kind of the scope definition type assets, so requirements, interfaces. The rail industry, if you're not familiar, is very heavily governed by standards. There's a lot of standards that are built up over many, many years. They all define the sort of technical scope. We've got engineering specialism, so different types of risks, hazards, the EMC, and the sort of the ilities, you know, availability, reliability, that kind of stuff. We've got different deliverables, either documents that have been issued from our supply chain or drawings. We've got our asset management system that gather information about the assets that make up our design, you know, bridges, tunnels, those sort of things. Survey data, huge amount of different type of survey data, geotechnical data, LiDAR, all sorts. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that we have all of these different asset types. And a lot of them sit in different repositories, different systems, different tools, and that causes a problem from an engineering and a system engineering perspective. So we're using doors. I mean, we think this is quite clever, but I mean, maybe people in the room here aren't that sort of impressed by this. But we're actually using doors next to manage a whole bunch of different data asset types. You know, doors is recognized as a requirements management tool primarily. We're actually using it for managing standards, technical interfaces, assumptions, safety hazards, human factor issues, physical and cyber threats and vulnerabilities, departures or non-compliances. And so we've built a sort of a schema, as it were, for how all of this information in our doors system relates to each other. And then that schema is used to inform how we build the link constraints and the link validity that we have in our door system. And we make use of certain bits of the doors functionality at the moment. So I don't think we would claim to be advanced users of doors next at the moment. Matt and the team have very kindly come in and done some training. I think we're looking at implementing some of the advanced features, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But these are some of the things we do in terms of how we manage our system at the moment. So we've created a number of different artifact types for all of those data assets. You obviously have requirements, artifact type, but also assumptions and interfaces and departures and so on and things. We have a lot of users either from our supply chain who are doing the design, but also with third parties. So we work very closely with Network Rail. We work very closely with the DFT, National Highways, and other third parties, you know, external users. And so we use a lot the permissions functionality within doors to assign certain access rights depending on the individual and the organization they come through, so they can see certain things and not others, and can edit certain things and not others. We've established workflows based on our management plans and our processes for all the different artifact types. So they're going through a workflow process, which means we can keep track of, you know, how many requirements have been accepted, how many departures have been identified but not accepted, and so on. So it allows us to kind of keep track and status of where we are. We're using the review feature as well indoors to send out information for review and getting comment back as part of that workflow process. We're using different project environments. Now, maybe there's clever ways of doing this, but our rationale for that was sort of two or threefold. One, we were creating project environments that would allow third parties to work in an environment that is separate from the rest. So let me give you an example. As I said, a big stakeholder for us is Network Rail. The railway we're building will be handed back to them, so they're the operator at the end of the day. And so they have a lot of user and operator type requirements. we're trying to encourage them to elicit their requirements and put them into our doors system. But we have a sort of a ring-fenced project that they can work within, that they can put these requirements in, and then we transfer them across into our sort of what we call our accepted requirements project, which is where we maintain the baseline. So it gives them a sort of a play pit that they can work within, that they can't do too much damage to the rest of the doors environment, but it gives them some visibility as well. So we use different project environments to do that. We also use different project environments somewhat to manage the data types in slightly different ways. Because of the sensitivity around the requirements, they tend to have their own project environment so that we can keep tighter baseline and configuration control over them. Some of the other data types, like assumptions and some of the risks, it's much more dynamic. It moves around a lot more. And so, we don't need as much configuration and baseline control perhaps as the requirements do. We make use of the baselining feature. In fact, I was quite interested to look at the retrospective baselining. I think there might be use cases where that would be useful. We do some reporting, but I wouldn't say that we're much more than sort of at a basic level at the moment. We use the reporting features to keep track of how many new requirements, how many new standards, the status of the workflows that we have and where things have moved to. And we use the glossary feature, which I think is actually a really neat feature, and it goes under the radar a bit. But yeah, we use the glossary feature quite a bit. Right, I'm in the church of IBM, and I'm going to blaspheme for a second, right? But we use Spark CA for our system architecture. I know, I'm sorry. Maybe we'd look at Rhapsody at some point, but we do use Spark CA at the moment, right? So we do a system architecture as well. We have a system architecture environment as well. As I said, we use Spark CA. It is based on the SysML as a modeling language. We do have some integration with doors though. So our requirements, so the left-hand kind of column there represents our requirements and standards in our ontology. And they're actually hosted in the doors environment. So we have, don't ask me how, we've got a wizard that does it for us, but we are able to bring in the requirement information and the standards information in from doors into our Spark CA environment. And then we begin to sort of link it up to the behavioral and sort of structural elements that they apply to. I'm probably going to blaspheme again here a little bit. We do have a system architecture, and broadly we're SysML compliant, but we also have rich pictures. Now, if I can jump ahead, so we have sort of structural block diagrams and things that would be kind of SysML compliant. This is a very high level kind of view of the railway system. But we also do things like this. So this is built in the Spark CA environment. And we make very extensive use of sort of icons, I guess, and replacing what would be otherwise kind of blocks in a block diagram, block definition diagram. We make use of a lot of icons. Now, the reason we do this is, one, a lot of the people in the railway industry, system engineering is still a little bit new, frankly. It's getting more mature, but there's still a long way to go. And people are used to seeing something like this, right? And I really think that a system